me, it's Murph Fuentes. I'm representing Hank here at the HIV Vaccine Trials Network annual meeting. And I am fortunate that I got to run into an influencer, an advocate, an author, and of course you all know we're talking about not your average girl, Hope Giselle.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, so, okay girl, I know that you've been hooking up with HVTN for a while now. Yeah. Why HVTN and how did that relationship develop?
You know, I actually was brought into the fold by Louis Shackelford. He is the Director of External Relations there. And he wanted to make sure that he was touching all the bases that pertain to audiences and demographics and the people that they were missing. And oftentimes those folks were women, and it didn't really matter whether they were trans or not. But there was definitely an influx of more trans women saying that they wanted to see themselves represented. And so Louis and I had a conversation while we were talking about getting funding actually for the National Trans Visibility March, which the HVTN sponsored for about 3 years.
Wow.
So Louis was like, you know what, I think this would be a really great project for you to work on. And as we were talking through short-term goals, the VTN became a space that I found myself really being enthralled with learning new information about where I was going to educate my base from. And it became such a place where I didn't feel like I had to overthink my research because there were so many doctors and people involved with that I felt really confident bringing it to my base. And I've been rocking with them ever since.
I love that representation. Yeah. I love what you bring for the base. And I think I love most of all is your optimism and your positivity that you bring to the field.
Thank you.
And so this is a hard question. I know that right now, things between research and the political climate, you know, terrible to say the least. How do you remain optimistic about HIV vaccine research in, you know, with all of this going on?
Well, as the numbers get worse, I think that we're having to realize that the science is working harder. It's not as though what's happening in our socio-political and our medical political are not linked. But I do believe that with the science and what we're hearing here is that the trials are still going, and whatever money was left to conduct them is still being used for those purposes. So we're still finding that a lot of the brightest minds working on this are still optimistic. And if the people who have gone to school for years and trained for this are still optimistic about the information, at the very least, I'm going to put that out to my base. They know what's happening on the socials. They can watch CNN or Fox or, you know, whatever your trusted news source is for that. But what they don't know is that on the back of all of that negativity, someone found out today that they have been living HIV-free, at least on paper, for 2 years. And folks need to understand that those are the types of breakthroughs that we're still having, even amongst this administration.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love, I mean, again, that optimism, that positivity. Yeah. This is the really hard question. Yeah. So I know that, you know, you're a representative for trans, you're representative for communities that are often underserved.
Yeah.
What would be your advice? How do we push back against the trans erasure, against the silencing of these communities? And how do we keep on fighting for these communities and for HIV research?
Stay visible. They want us to be erased both on paper and socially, which is the reason why there's such a huge push for them to do away with these rights and DEI and these Black folk and the indigenous folk over here and women over there. And I think that the reason why this becomes so difficult for them to do is because we refuse to lay down the way that we used to. We refuse to go back to the kitchens or the closet or, you know, back to our own private neighborhood thing that we built for each other. And the more that we remind them that we know how important our vote is, or else you wouldn't be working so hard to take it away, the easier it becomes to let them know that this time we're not going down without a fight.
That's what I love about you, loud and proud. So I want to give you some space to let people know what you've got going on in your life, what you'd like to promote. Maybe I hear there's a movie in the works.
God, there is a movie. It's out there. And so I do have a documentary. It's called Not Your Average Girl, and it's really about shedding the skin on old stereotypes that we have around trans women, especially Black trans women. I think that without some sort of sex work to fame pipeline, people don't understand how to really deal with us, and they're not cognizant of the way that they typically create media around us. And so I wanted to do away with some of that and remind people that if you're looking for a trauma story, fine, but not everybody's trauma is going to look the same. What does it look like that my trauma wasn't that I had to do sex work, but that I had to take 5 different classes on my first semester because because nobody warned me as a freshman not to do that. The trauma of those finals, that first year, that is trauma, my God. But beyond that, I also have my podcast, formerly Can We Talk with Hope Giselle is now I'll Wait with Hope Giselle. And that'll be launching on June 1st.
That's amazing. All right. Well, I can't wait to listen and I can't wait to watch. I am really so excited about that.
Super dope.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I love what you bring to the table and I hope we see much, much more of you. Keep it visible.
Yeah. Thank you.